And lament, those of us who are clergy, right? We lament. We understand the fiscal constraints that churches are under, relative even to clergy compensation. Right? And we know that, as a pastor, I pastored a small church, and they wanted to give me a small, modest raise, but that meant that those dollars weren't going to be used in ministry, and so it was just and so we're trying to come up with ways that we can support our clergy in different kinds of ways. We've had a partnership with Aflac that provides some benefits and some other things, but I've asked Becky to come and share more of her story and why a small contribution in this way may be helpful for your pastor. And so, Becky, thank you for being here. She's helped me. I've cashed in on a few things, right? I used my Aflac policies after I crashed my bike, and so, right, there's a payoff.
There is a payoff, and I want you to know it's interesting to come and hear all of the stories of ministry, and I come bringing a duck.
Yep.
But this is a thank you duck for you.
All right, I get a thank you duck.
Yes, I am Becky Swain, and I hail from the state of Colorado. But I want you to know, earlier this week I was in Hawaii for their district assembly, and Althea said, "Please tell my people I say hello." So she had a great district assembly for her first district assembly. So my story goes clear back into 2002. I was a Nazarene pastor's wife. We served over 20 years in ministry, my husband and I. And at the age of 42, my husband was diagnosed stage 4 colon cancer. No history in his family. I didn't have any history in my family, except for I had a nephew who died of bone cancer while he was attending Southern Nazarene University. I'm a third-generation Nazarene. I love the Church of the Nazarene. My husband fought a 6.5-year battle with colon cancer. Wasn't expected to live more than 6 months, but we had young children at the time, and he fought hard. But what that means with a cancer diagnosis was 6.5 years of meeting deductibles and co-pays, and we had really good insurance, but we owed thousands of dollars at the end of his cancer battle that I ended up paying off with a life insurance policy. And we had a lady in our church who was also battling cancer. I was talking to her one day. Our church continued to pay Jim's salary because we had kind of gone through some pretty major church conflict before his diagnosis. And the church board said, "You didn't give up on us, we're not going to give up on you." But I do know that that's not always the case in churches. They can't a lot of times afford to pay a pastor and to bring on a pastor. We had a lot of volunteers that came in and preached for Jim when he was so sick. But this lady in our church, she was a single lady. She owned a daycare, and she began a battle with pancreatic cancer. And I was visiting her one day, and I just said to her, "Stephanie, how in the world are you surviving financially during your battle?" And she said the words that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. And she said, "Oh, Becky, I could have never survived this without Aflac." I knew nothing about Aflac other than a very obnoxious duck on a commercial. In fact, I thought it was an investment company, financial investments, and when you don't make any money as a Nazarene pastor, we didn't have anything to invest, so I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention. But there was something about what she said to me that day. I knew I was supposed to find out about Aflac, and that was not the day to find out, but I kept that in the back of my mind. And about 2 years after Jim passed away, I began working for an eye doctor's office, and I found out just in a little conversation, well, the doctor lets us purchase Aflac if we want it. And it was like, oh, I've got to go find out about this. I immediately went to HR and said, I am supposed to buy Aflac. Would you get somebody in here to talk to me about it? She said, okay. So I had a gentleman, he came in and I said, okay, I'm supposed to buy Aflac. And he sold me a short-term disability policy. I still didn't understand it. That's how bad I was about this whole figuring out Aflac thing. And I got up from the table and I said, now this is something that would pay me if I got cancer. I said, now I don't have any family history, but neither did my husband. But I said, I am really interested in that. And he said, well, yeah, it will if you aren't able to work. He said, but actually we have a cancer policy. I sat back down and I said, I'm supposed to get the cancer policy. And so he sold me a cancer policy in March of 2012. In December of that year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. No family history. Now that was 2012. I have never not been in treatment since 2012. I take chemotherapy pills. I have chemotherapy shots. I get once a month. And a policy that cost me $44 a month at the time has paid me $240,000 in the last 13 years. And so I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that that was God really hitting me where I needed to be so that he could provide for me as a widow financially in the hardest battle of my life. So in 2021, I ended up moving out of the state where I was in, and I needed a new career. And I talked to my Aflac agent, and I said, you know, I tell people about this all the time, especially pastors, because I know pastors, you guys don't make what your education is worth. You don't make, you guys are in ministry, and I know it's difficult. And so I tell a lot of my pastor friends, because I went to a Nazarene college, we were in seminary, so I know a lot of Nazarene pastors. And so I asked my agents, do you think I could sell Aflac so I could do it on a bigger scale? And he said, well, Becky, you kind of are the poster child for Aflac and what it can do for you. So I began to sell Aflac. And Bruce Barnard on this district actually reached out to me when he first found out that I was going to be selling Aflac. And he said, the Metro New York district is looking for ways to help their pastors. Can we figure out a way we can make that happen? And so we kind of began to put together this plan where a district in the denomination, if they want to, they become the account. And pastors, most of pastors don't have the 3 people it would normally take to make an account with Aflac. They can come under the umbrella of the district for a couple of months, and then they can drop off that account, and then they can have Aflac privately. Now, I could sell Aflac to anybody privately, but it costs more money. Being under an account, it makes it less expensive. Aflac will never go up in price. And so even when you're not under the district account, you get it at the same price. Now, I probably haven't really told you much about what Aflac is. You probably still think it's an investment company, but it is not. Aflac is a supplemental insurance company that is completely separate from your major medical. So think in terms of 2 houses. Your medical insurance pays your hospitals and doctors. Aflac pays you. So all that $240,000 that I talked about from my cancer policy has come to me. I've been able to use it for whatever I need to use it for. I have had to fly across the United States for some treatments. I have had to be off of work for periods of time. Aflac doesn't care what I do with my money. It's tax-free money to me. Now, I've kept good insurance. I assure you, Aflac will not pay for all of your cancer treatments. My monthly treatments are billed at about $34,000 to $40,000. But I have fought cancer now for almost 13 years. That's 13 years of having to come up with deductibles and copays. My Aflac, I can pay for those, and then now I pay my house payment with my Aflac. So Aflac pays you, and you can use it for whatever you need. Like I said, it's never going to go up in price, which is unheard of for insurances. I'm still paying $44 a month for that cancer policy. The top cancer policy right now is about $47 a month. And so you can see it's very inexpensive. I sell under the district a cancer policy, obviously for cancer, an accident policy for any kind of an injury. It is also included in that a life insurance policy if someone were to pass away due to an injury. Critical illness, heart attacks, strokes, all of those things that are covered. A hospital policy for any reason that you'd have to go to the hospital. And life insurance policies. Children under the age of 26 are free on your cancer policy, and they pay double the benefits for children. Since my diagnosis, I have had a niece that was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 24. And as I said, my nephew did die of cancer at the age of 24. Children, it is the #1 cause of death, other than an accidental injury. It's cancer. So Aflac is a big believer in supporting parents whenever their children are diagnosed with cancer. And adults, right now, the statistics are men, 1 in 2 men in their lifetime will be diagnosed with cancer. And women, it is 1 in 3 women right now. Since COVID, strokes are happening younger and younger. I'm not going to politicize COVID. I don't know whether it's vaccine related or it's COVID related, but I'm telling you the statistics are younger and younger. So the cost of Aflac is very inexpensive, and I have several churches that they can't really pay their pastors a weekly salary, but they've said, you know what, we can maybe buy them Aflac policies so that if a major event happens to them, they're going to be covered to help them with that major event. And I want to tell you about a new friend now from the Kansas district. I told him I wouldn't say his name. He didn't really care whether I said his name or not. But about 4 weeks ago, I got a phone call. And he said, Becky, I haven't even told my wife, but I found out just a few minutes ago I was diagnosed with cancer. I saw him at the Ministers and Mates retreat for the Kansas district just last October. And he told me, he said, there was something about your story, Becky. I knew I was supposed to get Aflac. Didn't have a history in my family. And now I'm diagnosed and I will be in treatment for a year. Within 3 weeks of his diagnosis, he had over $8,000 directly deposited into his bank account because of his cancer policy. He's a bivocational pastor. He's not only going to not be able to pastor for a period of time, he's also going to have to leave his secular job to be able to battle cancer. He told his church board the next Sunday about his diagnosis, and he said, but remember what you did for me? You bought me cancer policy. You bought me several Aflac policies, and the church board couldn't believe it. They were so thrilled. And so I appreciate very much, Jeff, being able to talk to not only your pastors here, but the laymen, your leaders within the church. I have had several church boards come to me and say, we want to have a discussion. We want to see what we can do for our pastors. We can't give them much, but this is pretty cheap stuff, and we'd like to do something like that. The ushers have a form. It just has your name, address, phone number, email. If you would be interested, you're here for assembly, but I would love to do a Zoom meeting, pastors, lay leaders. You don't have to be a pastor to get Aflac. I'm happy to talk to you too, but my passion really is to help pastors, especially small church pastors. But if you want to raise your hand, some of the ushers can give you a form. Just fill it out. You've obviously seen my table. And I would love, it'd be an honor the next week, to have a conversation with you over Zoom. I am not a pushy salesperson. I say nobody begged me to get Aflac. I will not beg you, but I knock on the doors. If you feel like that's something that you at least want to ask some more questions about, I am happy to help you. Those of you on this district that already have policies, I would love to connect with you because there are wellness benefits on your policies. You don't have to have had a life event happen, but if you've gone and had a cancer screening, there's going to be money in your pocket within about 3 days of you filing a claim. So please come see me. If you don't remember what you got, I've got my computer with me. I would be happy to help.
Good.
Thank you
Good.
for allowing me
Good.
so much.
Thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's really one of our commitments. We talked about the 7 commitments, right? One of them is to make sure our pastors have resources, right? We've got to think through some of these things and provide as many as we can. And so these would be just conversations we normalize and make sure that we're taking care of those things. We have a video, the NDI video, and